There is a version of you that keeps ruining your life, and it speaks every time it should stay silent. There is a pattern you refuse to confront. You react too fast, too emotionally, too predictably. And there is a truth you keep avoiding. Your need to respond is the reason you're not respected. Look at yourself, not the image you try to maintain, the raw version, the one who can't ignore, the one who feels attacked by everything, the one who believes every situation deserves a response. You call that awareness. It's not. It's weakness disguised as control, because real control doesn't rush. Real control doesn't react. Real control chooses. If you are tired of being emotionally pulled into everything, tired of feeling drained after conversations that meant nothing, then you already feel this. This is not for everyone. This is for the few who are ready to become untouchable. The few who are done performing for attention. The few who are ready to operate in silence. Subscribe if you recognize that shift inside you. Comment, "I stay silent," if you understand this. Because once this clicks, you will never go back to who you were. There is a reason people keep testing you. And it's not because they're strong. It's because you're accessible. You react. Every time someone provokes you, you respond. Someone disrespects you, you defend. Someone misunderstands you, you explain. And in every one of those moments, you lose. Not publicly, internally. Because every reaction is a leak of energy, a leak of control, a leak of power. And over time, those leaks drain you, until you're left wondering why you feel so exhausted, why you feel so exposed, why people don't take you seriously. It's because they've studied you, and you taught them how. You showed them your triggers, your limits, your breaking points. You made yourself readable, and readable people are controllable. That's the first shift. Not everything deserves your attention, but you treat everything like it does. Every comment hits you. Every opinion bothers you. Every situation pulls you in. You engage with all of it. And because of that, you're mentally scattered. Your focus is weak. Your energy is divided. Your mind is constantly reacting instead of directing. Powerful people don't live like that. They filter. They observe. They ignore. Because attention is not free. It's currency. And you've been spending it on things that don't deserve a second of your time. The second shift cuts deeper. There is power in silence that you've never fully used. You think silence is empty. It's not. Silence is pressure. Silence forces people to confront themselves. When you don't respond, they start questioning. They start overthinking. They start revealing more than they planned. All while you sit back, untouched. But you struggle with that, because you've been conditioned to fill every gap, to speak, to respond, to prove. So when silence appears, you panic. You rush to break it. And in doing so, you give away your position. You show that you're affected. You show that you need to be understood. And needing to be understood is where your control disappears. There is a version of you that is addicted to reaction. You feel it, that urge, that tension, that need to say something, anything, just to release the pressure. That's not strength. That's lack of discipline. Because discipline would hold you still. Discipline would make you watch. Discipline would make you wait. But you don't wait. You jump. You engage. You feed situations that should have died in silence. And then you wonder why they grow, why they escalate, why they consume your peace. It's because you keep giving them life. The third shift is uncomfortable. There is freedom in being misunderstood. But you keep running from it. You want clarity. You want validation. You want people to see your intentions. So you explain, again, and again, and again. But the truth is simple. People who want to misunderstand you will. No matter how clear you are. No matter how much you explain. So every time you chase understanding, you lower yourself. You step into their frame. You play their game. And in their game, you always lose. Because the rules were never in your favor. Powerful people don't chase understanding. They let perception exist. They don't correct every narrative. They don't fix every opinion. They move forward regardless. That's control. That's detachment. That's power. The fourth shift breaks your ego. There is strength in indifference, but you confuse it with weakness. Indifference is not coldness. It's selection. It's knowing what matters and what doesn't. Right now, everything matters to you. That's the problem. You give equal weight to everything. Respect and disrespect. Noise and truth. Relevance and irrelevance. So you react to all of it. And because of that, you lose your center. But when you become selective, everything changes. You stop reacting to nonsense. You stop engaging with distractions. You stop giving energy to things that don't build you. And in that space, your power grows. Quietly, without effort, without announcement. There is a dangerous level you haven't reached yet. A level where your silence speaks louder than your words ever could. A level where your lack of reaction creates tension in others. A level where people can't read you, can't predict you, can't control you. That's where you're going. But to get there, you must sacrifice something. Your need to respond. Your need to explain. Your need to be seen. Because all of that is holding you back. And once you remove it, you become something rare, something difficult to access, something impossible to manipulate. There is a final truth you need to accept. Ignoring is not passive. It's strategic. Every time you choose silence, you're choosing control. Every time you don't react, you're strengthening discipline. Every time you ignore, you're protecting your energy. And energy is everything. Without it, you have nothing. With it, you control everything. So the next time you feel that urge, that pressure to respond, that need to prove, pause and ask yourself one question. Is this worth my power? Most of the time, the answer will be no. And in that moment, silence becomes your weapon. Silence becomes your shield. Silence becomes your identity. Now this is where it gets real. Because knowing this is not enough. You have to live it. You have to apply it. You have to choose it again and again, especially when it's hardest. So here's your challenge. The next time someone tries to pull you in, don't respond. The next time you feel disrespected, don't defend. The next time you feel misunderstood, don't explain. Stand still. Say nothing. And watch what happens. Watch how people react when they can't reach you. Watch how situations lose power when you don't feed them. Watch how your control grows. The moment you stop giving it away. Because this is not about them. It never was. It's about you and who you choose to become. There is a reason the strongest minds in history mastered silence before they mastered speech. There is a discipline in restraint that most people will never understand. And there is a level of control you haven't touched yet. Because you still feel the need to respond. You think power is in expression. But the Stoics understood something deeper. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to the world, because he knew something you're still learning. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not even in your own mind. There is a war happening inside you every day. A war between impulse and control. Between ego and discipline. Between reaction and silence. And right now, impulse is winning. You feel something, and you act. You get triggered, and you respond. You get disrespected, and you defend. But what if the real victory is doing nothing? Not out of fear, but out of strength. That's the shift. There is power in not becoming what the situation demands. Someone insults you, the situation demands anger. You give silence. Someone provokes you, the situation demands reaction. You give nothing. Someone tries to pull you into chaos. The situation demands participation. You withdraw. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. That's control. Epictetus said something most people ignore. You are disturbed not by what happens, but by your judgment about it. Read that again, because this is where everything changes. The event is neutral. The words are neutral. The situation is neutral. It's your interpretation that creates the reaction. And if you can control the interpretation, you control everything that follows. That means no one actually has power over you, unless you give it to them, through reaction, through emotion, through attention, and you've been giving it away freely. That ends when you start questioning your impulses. Why do you feel the need to respond? Why does their opinion matter? Why are you giving importance to something that doesn't build you? These questions will expose you, because most of your reactions are not logical. They're emotional habits, conditioned responses, patterns you never challenged. And until you challenge them, you will repeat them again and again and again. There is a level of self-respect that requires silence. Not forced silence, chosen silence. Because when you truly respect yourself, you don't argue with people beneath your standard. You don't engage with nonsense. You don't lower yourself to be understood. You move differently. You think differently. You operate with precision. Seneca warned about this. He said the greatest loss is the loss of time. And every time you engage in meaningless reactions, you lose time, you lose focus, you lose energy, and you don't get it back. So ask yourself, how much of your life has been wasted responding to things that didn't matter? How many hours, days, years, gone, because you couldn't ignore? That realization should hit you hard, because it's not just about control. It's about your life, your direction, your growth. And right now you're distracted, constantly, pulled in every direction by noise, by people, by situations that don't deserve your attention. That's why you feel stuck, because your energy is scattered, your focus is broken, your discipline is weak. And discipline is built in moments like this, moments where you feel the urge to react, but choose silence instead. That's where you grow. That's where you separate yourself. That's where you become dangerous. Not loud, not aggressive, controlled. There is something intimidating about a person who doesn't react. People test you and get nothing. People provoke you and get silence. People expect a response and receive nothing. That creates tension because they don't understand you. They can't read you. They can't predict you. And what they can't predict, they can't control. That's the position you want to be in. But it comes at a cost. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. You will be called cold, detached, arrogant. Let them, because those labels come from people who rely on reaction, people who need noise, people who don't understand discipline. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be in control. And control requires sacrifice. You sacrifice validation. You sacrifice approval. You sacrifice the need to explain yourself. Because those things weaken you. They tie you to external opinions, external reactions, external noise. And once you're tied, you're no longer free. Freedom comes from detachment, from knowing that you don't need to respond. You don't need to prove. You don't need to engage. You choose when to act. You choose when to speak. You choose when to ignore. And that choice is your power. There is another level to this, a deeper one, because ignoring is not just about people. It's about your own thoughts, your own fears, your own doubts. You react internally the same way you react externally. A negative thought appears. You engage. You entertain it. You build on it. And suddenly, it controls your mood, your actions, your day. But what if you ignored that too? What if every negative thought, every doubt, every fear was met with silence? No engagement, no reaction, no energy. It would die, because thoughts need attention to survive. Just like people, just like situations. What you feed grows. What you ignore fades. So ask yourself, what have you been feeding? And what should you have been ignoring? That answer will show you everything. There is a final shift you must understand. Ignoring is not about being passive. It's about being precise. You don't ignore everything. You ignore what doesn't align, what doesn't build, what doesn't deserve you. That requires awareness, discipline, clarity, and most people lack all three. But you won't, because now you see it. Now you understand it. Now it's your responsibility to live it. So here's where you separate yourself. The next time you feel disrespected, you don't react. The next time you feel misunderstood, you don't explain. The next time you feel triggered, you don't engage. You observe. You breathe. You stay still. And in that stillness, you take your power back, piece by piece, moment by moment, until it becomes who you are. Not something you try to do, something you are. Calm, controlled, unreachable. That's the level. And once you reach it, you don't go back, because you finally understand something most people never will. Power is not in what you say. It's in what you refuse to give your attention to. Because once you understand that, you start seeing your past differently. There is a trail behind you. Moments you wish you handled differently. Words you wish you never said. Reactions that expose too much. And the truth hits you hard. You weren't attacked. You were activated. There is a difference. One is external. The other is internal. And everything you lost came from what was inside you, not outside. There is a pattern in your life. You keep repeating it. Different people. Same outcome. Different situations. Same reaction. And you keep blaming them. But deep down, you know the truth. It's you. Your lack of restraint. Your need to respond. Your inability to ignore. That's what keeps you stuck. That's what keeps you predictable. That's what keeps you weak. And weakness doesn't survive in a world that constantly tests you. There is no peace for the reactive. Only cycles. Endless cycles of emotion. Up and down. Triggered and drained. Engaged and exhausted. You feel it. That heaviness after reacting. That regret after speaking too much. That silence after you've already said what you shouldn't have said. And in that silence, you realize something. You gave too much. Again, there is a version of you that is tired. Not physically, mentally, because you're constantly engaged, constantly reacting, constantly pulled into things that don't matter. And you don't even realize how much it's costing you. Your clarity, your focus, your discipline, your peace, all traded for reactions that meant nothing. There is something dangerous about someone who has nothing left to prove, because they don't react, they don't defend, they don't explain, they move silently, and their silence says everything. But you're not there yet, because you still feel the need to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. That need is your chain, and every time you respond, you tighten it. There is a moment, right before you react, a split second, where you feel it, the urge, the pressure, the emotion rising. That moment is everything. That's where the battle happens. Not after, not before, right there. And most of the time, you lose it, you give in, you speak, and once you cross that line, you can't take it back. That's why discipline is built in that moment. That exact moment, when everything inside you is telling you to respond, and you choose silence instead. That's power. Not talking over someone, not proving a point, not winning an argument. Silence. Chosen. Controlled. Intentional. There is a reason people fear what they can't read. Because it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty creates tension. And tension creates respect. Not forced respect. Not loud respect. Quiet respect. The kind that makes people think twice before approaching you. Before testing you. Before trying you. Because they don't know what they'll get. And that unknown protects you. But you've been too easy to read. Too open. Too reactive. You've shown people exactly how to get to you. Exactly what bothers you. Exactly how to pull you in. And now you wonder why they keep doing it. Because it works. It always worked. Until now. Because now you're becoming aware. Now you're starting to see the pattern. Now you're starting to realize that your reactions were never strength. They were exposure. There is a shift happening inside you right now. You feel it. A resistance. A discomfort. Because part of you doesn't want to let go. Part of you still wants to react. Still wants to speak. Still wants to prove. That part of you is your ego. And your ego hates silence. Because silence removes attention. Silence removes validation. Silence removes the stage. And without a stage, the ego has nothing to perform on. So it fights, pushes you to respond, to say something, to do something, anything. But stay still. But this is where you separate yourself. This is where you choose discipline over ego, control over impulse, silence over noise. And every time you make that choice, you get stronger, not physically, mentally, emotionally, internally. You build something most people never develop. Stability, the kind that doesn't shake when tested, the kind that doesn't break under pressure, the kind that doesn't react, even when provoked. That's rare. And rare is powerful. There is another truth you need to face. Most people don't deserve access to you. Not your time, not your energy, not your attention, but you've been giving it away freely. To anyone, to anything. And that's why you feel drained. Because you're overexposed. Too available. Too responsive. There is no filter, no boundary, no control. And without boundaries, people will take everything. Your peace, your focus, your energy, until there's nothing left. And then they move on, leaving you exhausted, confused, empty. That cycle ends when you start ignoring. Not everything, but anything that doesn't align with who you're becoming. That's the key. Who you're becoming. Because this is not just about behavior. It's about identity. You are becoming someone different. Someone who doesn't react. Someone who doesn't chase. Someone who doesn't explain. Someone who chooses. And that identity requires discipline. Daily, consistent, uncomfortable discipline. There will be moments where silence feels like weakness. Moments where you want to respond so badly it hurts. Moments where your mind is screaming at you to say something, do something, prove something. And in those moments, you will be tested. Not by them, by yourself. And your growth depends on how you respond to that test. Because every time you choose silence, you reinforce control. Every time you ignore, you strengthen discipline. Every time you don't react, you take your power back. And over time, that becomes who you are. Not something you try to do, something you naturally do, without effort, without struggle, without thought. That's mastery. There is a level of calm you haven't experienced yet. A calm that doesn't come from everything being perfect, but from you being in control. Calm where nothing disturbs you, nothing pulls you in, nothing shakes your center, because you've removed the one thing that allowed it to happen. Your reactions. Once that's gone, everything changes. Your environment changes. Your relationships change. Your mindset changes. Because you're no longer feeding chaos. You're no longer participating in noise. You're no longer available to everything. And that shift transforms everything around you. People start adjusting. They stop testing you. They stop provoking you. Because they're not getting the reaction they expected. And without that reaction, there's nothing for them to feed on. That's how you win. Not by fighting. Not by arguing. Not by proving. By removing yourself from the game completely. And watching it collapse without your participation. That's real power. There is a final layer to this. And it's the hardest one. You must become comfortable with being alone in your mindset. Because once you stop reacting, you separate yourself. You stop fitting in. You stop engaging the way others do. And that creates distance. People won't understand you. They'll question you. They'll misinterpret your silence. But that's the price. The price of control. The price of discipline. The price of power. And if you're not willing to pay that price, you will stay where you are. Stuck. Reactive. Predictable. Controlled. So now the question is simple. Who do you choose to be? The version of you that reacts to everything, or the version of you that controls everything? Because you can't be both. You either respond to the world, or you command your inner world, and only one of those leads to power. So the next time you feel that urge, that pressure, that emotional pull, pause, feel it, acknowledge it, and then do nothing, say nothing, give nothing. And in that moment, you will feel something different. Not weakness, not fear, power, raw, controlled, unshaken power. And that's where everything begins. There is something you don't want to admit. You enjoy reacting, not consciously, but emotionally, because reacting makes you feel alive. It gives you a sense of control, even when you're losing it. It gives you a voice, even when that voice is exposing you. And that's why you keep doing it, again, and again, and again. But let me make this personal. Think about the last time you lost control. Not just a small reaction, a real one, where your emotions took over, where your words came fast, sharp, unfiltered, and afterwards, there was silence. Not powerful silence, regret, that quiet moment where you replay everything. What you said, how you said it, how you looked, and deep down you knew. You gave them exactly what they wanted. That's the part that should disturb you. Not what they said, not what they did, but how easily you gave them access, how easily they reached you, how quickly you reacted. Because that moment wasn't about them. It was about you, your lack of control, your lack of discipline, your lack of awareness. And until you face that, nothing changes. There is a reason you keep ending up in the same emotional situations. Different faces, same patterns. You get pulled in, you react, you drain yourself, and then you promise, next time will be different. But next time comes, and you do it again. Why? Because you never trained yourself to pause. You never built the habit of silence. You never learned to ignore. You only learned to respond. That's the problem. And it's deeper than you think. Because it's not just external. It's internal. You don't just react to people. You react to your thoughts, your fears, your doubts. You entertain them. You argue with them. You try to fix them, instead of ignoring them. Let me be clear. Everything that controls you gets your attention. And everything that gets your attention grows. So look at your life. What has been growing? Your discipline or your reactions? Your control or your impulses? Because the answer is visible in your results. There is a moment you can go back to. A moment where silence would have changed everything. Where ignoring would have protected you. Where doing nothing would have been the strongest move. But you didn't. You spoke. You reacted. You engaged. And now you carry the consequences. That's the cost of lack of control. And it's always heavier than you expect. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this constantly. He wrote about how people will be difficult, disrespectful, ignorant, and his response wasn't to fight them. It was to prepare himself, to expect it, to stay grounded, to remain in control, because he understood something you're just starting to see. You can't control people, but you can control how much access they have to you. And right now, you've been giving full access to anyone who provokes you, anyone who speaks, anyone who triggers you. That ends when you decide it ends, not when they change. When you change, there is a level of maturity that comes with ignoring, a level where you don't need closure. You don't need the last word. You don't need to be right. You just need peace. And peace requires sacrifice. You sacrifice ego. You sacrifice the need to win. You sacrifice the urge to respond. Because every time you choose silence, you are choosing yourself over the situation, over the noise, over the moment. And that's not easy, because your ego will fight you. It will tell you to speak, to defend, to correct, to prove. But that voice is the same voice that has been keeping you stuck. The same voice that led you into regret. The same voice that made you lose control. So why are you still listening to it? Seneca warned about this internal conflict. He spoke about how we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And that's exactly what happens when you react. You build the situation in your mind. You amplify it. You give it meaning. And then you respond to something that was never as big as you made it. But silence breaks that cycle. Silence stops the story. Silence cuts the emotion. Silence brings you back to control. There is something powerful about watching a situation unfold and choosing not to be part of it. Watching people argue and staying quiet. Watching someone try to provoke you and giving them nothing. Watching chaos And remaining still, that's strength. Not loud strength, controlled strength. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't need recognition. The kind that exists regardless of who's watching. Epictetus made this simple. If it's not in your control, it's not your concern. But you've been making everything your concern. Everyone's opinion, everyone's behavior, every situation. You carry it all. And then you wonder why you feel heavy, why you feel drained, why you feel overwhelmed. It's because you're holding things that were never yours. And ignoring is how you put them down. There is a version of you that doesn't react. Picture it. Someone speaks. You listen, but you don't absorb. Someone provokes. You notice, but you don't engage. Someone disrespects. You see it, but you don't respond. Not because you didn't feel it, but because you controlled it. That version of you is calm, focused, unshaken, and most importantly, free. Free from needing to respond. Free from needing to prove. Free from needing to be understood. That's the level you're building. But it requires consistency. You can't choose silence once and expect change. You have to choose it every time, especially when it's hardest. Especially when your emotions are high. Especially when your ego is loud. That's where it matters. That's where you grow. That's where you separate yourself from who you used to be. Because this is not about perfection. You will slip. You will react. You will say things you shouldn't. But the difference now is awareness. You will catch it faster. You will correct it quicker. You will learn from it. And over time, those reactions will become less frequent, less intense, less controlling, until one day, you realize something. You're no longer reacting the way you used to. You're no longer pulled into everything. You're no longer easily disturbed. You've changed, not on the surface, but internally. And that internal change reflects everywhere, in how people treat you, in how you handle situations, in how you carry yourself. Because control shows, silence shows, discipline shows, even when you say nothing. And that's the point. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to prove your change. You don't need to explain your silence. It speaks for itself. And the right people will understand it. The wrong people will question it. Ignore both, because this is not about them. It never was. It's about you becoming someone who cannot be easily shaken. Someone who cannot be easily read. Someone who cannot be easily controlled. And that version of you is built in silence. So the next time you feel that urge, make it personal. Don't think about them. Think about you. Who are you becoming in this moment? The same reactive version or the controlled version you're trying to build? Because every moment is a decision. Every reaction is a choice. Every silence is power. And the more you choose it, the more powerful you become. So choose carefully, because your life is shaped by how you respond, or how you refuse to. There is one final truth you can't escape. The life you keep complaining about is being shaped by what you refuse to control. Not your circumstances, not other people. You. Every reaction you gave, every moment you lost yourself, every time you chose noise over silence, it built the version of you you're living with right now. So if nothing changes, nothing changes. Read that again, because this is where most people lie to themselves. They watch, they feel motivated, they agree, and then they go right back to reacting the same way. Same triggers, same habits, same outcomes, and they wonder why their life never shifts. Don't be that person. Don't walk away from this unchanged, because now you know, now you see it, now you feel it. So the next time life tests you, and it will, the next time someone tries to pull you in, the next time your emotions rise and your ego starts screaming, that's your moment. That's your turning point. That's where your new identity is built. Not in comfort, not in theory, in pressure, in silence, in control. Stand there, feel everything, and still say nothing. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand you, while you stay grounded, unmoved, unreachable. Because that version of you, the one who doesn't react, the one who doesn't explain, the one who doesn't give access so easily, that version wins. Quietly, consistently. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm demanding you become aware. Aware of every impulse, every urge, every moment you're about to lose control. And when you catch it, you take your power back. That's the game now. Control or be controlled. Silence or exposure. Discipline or regret. Choose, and choose every single day. If this message hit you, not just emotionally, but deeply, then you already know this isn't just another video. This is a shift. So don't just watch. Commit. Subscribe if you're serious about becoming someone who cannot be easily shaken. Like the video if you felt the truth in this. And comment, I choose control, if you're done being ruled by your reactions. Now don't stop here. There's a video on your screen right now. And if you're ready to go deeper, if you're ready to sharpen this mindset and become even more disciplined, click it. Because the next level of your control starts there.